The boy stumbled through the marble lobby, rain-soaked and desperate. "They're hurting my mom." Security moved to intercept. But when the billionaire heard the mother's name, everything stopped. And what he did next would shock the entire city. If you believe no innocent child should have to beg for help while the rich look away, hit subscribe. Only the heartless would scroll past. The revolving doors of Scott Industries hadn't seen an unauthorized visitor in 12 years. Tonight they spun violently as 7-year-old Dixon Gregg burst through, his sneakers squeaking against polished marble. Michael Scott looked up from the architectural plans spread across his desk 60 floors above, his jaw tightening. Something was wrong. The building's silence was shattered. Dixon ran past the security desk, his small frame darting between leather chairs and glass coffee tables. His shirt was torn at the sleeve. Mud streaked his face. Blood dried on his scraped knees. Behind him, 2 security guards gave chase, their shoes thundering against the floor. "Stop that kid," one shouted. But Dixon didn't stop. He couldn't. His mother's screams still echoed in his ears. He spotted the elevator bay and sprinted harder, his lungs burning. The elevator doors began to close. He dove through the gap, crashing onto the carpeted floor inside. His trembling finger jabbed the button marked 60 Executive Suite. In his office, Michael Scott stood, his instincts flaring. He was 40 years old, built like someone who still remembered his construction days despite the tailored suits. His assistant, Jennifer, appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Mr. Scott, we have a situation. A child just—" "I know." Michael's voice was quiet. He always knew when something breached his carefully controlled world. "Let him come." "Sir, security protocols." "Let him come." The elevator climbed. Dixon pressed himself into the corner, his whole body shaking. 58. 59. 60. The doors opened with a soft chime. Before him stretched a corridor of glass and steel, ending in massive oak doors. He ran. The doors to Michael's office stood open. Dixon burst through and collapsed onto the cream carpet, his small chest heaving. Above him, backlit by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, stood Michael Scott. The billionaire's face was unreadable, his gray eyes studying the child with an intensity that would have made grown men uncomfortable. "Please," Dixon gasped, tears cutting through the dirt on his cheeks. "Please, you have to help her." "Help who?" Michael's voice was controlled, but something flickered in his expression. "My mom. They took her. They're hurting her." Dixon struggled to his feet, swaying. She said if anything bad happened, if I needed help, I should find Michael Scott. She said you owed her. She said, "What's your mother's name?" The question came sharp as a blade. "Susan Gregg." Michael Scott went absolutely still. The architectural plans slipped from his hand, scattering across the desk. Around him, the city lights blurred. For a moment, he was 23 again, drowning in debt, watching his first construction project collapse, watching his dream die, until a young bookkeeper named Susan had walked into that disaster and handed him a folder. "Mr. Scott," she'd said quietly, "I found the error in your contractor's billing. They've been overcharging you by 40%. Here's the proof. Take it to the authorities. You can still save your company." She'd asked for nothing, expected nothing, just turned and walked away, leaving him with the evidence that would eventually build his empire. "Mr. Scott?" Jennifer's voice cut through the memory. "Should I call the police?" "No." Michael crouched down, bringing himself to Dixon's eye level. Up close, he could see the boy was even younger than he'd first appeared. 7, maybe. His clothes were cheap but clean, or had been before tonight. His eyes held that particular kind of terror that only comes from seeing someone you love in danger. "How did you get here, Dixon?" "I ran for 2 hours. Mom made me memorize your building's address. She said it was important." "Smart woman." Michael stood, already moving to his desk. "Jennifer, clear my schedule. Cancel everything." "Sir, you have the Henderson meeting in 20 minutes. That's a $300 million. Cancel it. His fingers flew across his phone. Send Peter and the security team to my office. Now. And get Dr. Mark up here. The boy's injured. What's happening? Dixon's voice wavered. Are you going to help? Michael turned, and for the first time since the boy had entered, his expression softened slightly. 15 years ago, your mother saved my life. She gave me the information that saved my company, that built everything you see here. He gestured to the sprawling office, the view of the city below. She never asked for anything in return, never contacted me again. I tried to find her, to thank her, but she'd moved, changed her number. She said you were too important to bother. She was wrong. Michael's voice hardened with determination. Where is she? The warehouse, by the docks. The red one with the broken windows. Dixon's words tumbled out faster now. 3 men came to our apartment. They had guns. They said Mom owed them money, but she doesn't. She's never borrowed money from anyone. They just grabbed her and... The office doors burst open. A tall, muscular man in a black suit entered, followed by 3 others. Peter Chen, head of Scott Industries' security, had worked with Michael for 8 years. He'd learned to read his boss's moods. Tonight, Michael Scott was dangerous. We have a situation, Michael said. Kidnapping, possible extortion, location, red warehouse, industrial dock district. I want satellite imaging of the area, blueprints if we have them, and a list of every property owner in that zone. I want to know who operates there. Marcus's eyes flicked to Dixon, then back to Michael. Sir, with all due respect, this is a police matter. The police will take too long. They'll want statements, evidence, warrants. Michael's jaw tightened. Susan doesn't have time for bureaucracy. We're not a tactical unit. Then hire one. I want the best hostage rescue team in the state here in 30 minutes. Money is not a concern. Michael, Marcus's voice dropped. This could go wrong in 100 different ways. It will go wrong in only one way, if we do nothing. Michael locked eyes with his security chief. Susan Gregg saved everything I have. Tonight I return the favor. A heavy silence filled the office. Then Peter nodded once, pulling out his phone. I'll make the calls. Dr. Mark arrived moments later, a small woman with gentle hands and a no-nonsense manner. She knelt beside Dixon, examining his cuts and scrapes while Michael paced, his mind already mapping the rescue. He's dehydrated, Dr. Mark said. Exhausted. These cuts need cleaning. Mom said not to stop, Dixon protested weakly. She said run until I found you. You found me. Michael stopped pacing, his decision made. And now we go get her. Like this video and subscribe if you'd never side with people who use power to hurt the helpless. Let's drown out the greedy and the cruel with compassion. You're taking him? Dr. Mark looked alarmed. I'm not leaving him alone, and... Michael's expression shifted, calculating. If this is a trap, if someone's using Susan to draw me out, I need to understand why. Dixon might be safer with me than anywhere else. Jennifer appeared again, tablet in hand. Sir, I have preliminary intel. The red warehouse is owned by a shell company. 3 layers deep, but our financial team is tracing it now. Also, she hesitated. There's been chatter. Street level. Someone's been asking about Susan Gregg's connections, specifically her connection to you. Michael's blood ran cold. How long? 2 weeks? Maybe 3. This wasn't random. This was planned. Get me everything we have on anyone who's inquired about my past, about my early days. Focus on the year Susan helped me. Peter returned, his face grim. I've got a team en route, former special forces, all of them. But Michael, if this is about you, if someone's using Susan as bait, then they picked the wrong target. Michael moved to a panel on the wall, pressing his palm against it. The panel slid open, revealing a small arsenal, not weapons, but equipment. Surveillance tech, body cameras, communication devices. I'm not going in blind, and I'm not going in recklessly. He turned to Dixon, who was watching with wide eyes as Dr. Mark bandaged his knees. Dixon, I need you to tell me everything. Start from the beginning. How many men? What did they look like? What exactly did they say? The boy swallowed hard, then began. 3 men. The big one had a scar here. He traced a line down his cheek. He did most of the talking. He said, "Your mother has something we need. Tell us where it is and we'll let you both go." "What thing?" "I don't know. Mom kept saying she didn't know what they meant." Then the big one laughed and said, "Fine. Maybe your old friend Michael Scott will pay to get you back." Dixon's voice cracked. That's when Mom looked at me and said, "Run." Michael exchanged a glance with Marcus. This confirmed it. Susan was bait. But for what? Money? Revenge? Something else? "Marcus, I want financial forensics on every deal I've closed in the past year. Every contract, every negotiation. Someone thinks I wronged them. Or someone wants leverage," Peter replied grimly. 20 minutes later, the team assembled in Michael's private conference room. 6 operators, each carrying credentials that read like military fantasy. The team leader, a woman named Rachel Torres, spread a map across the table. "Dock District, Red Warehouse," she said, her voice clipped and professional. "Single story, steel frame construction, 12,000 square feet, 4 entry points, multiple sight lines from surrounding buildings. If they're smart, they've got lookouts." "Assume they're smart," Michael said. Rachel nodded. "Standard hostage protocol is negotiate, contain, extract, but you're not giving me negotiation time." "Correct." "Then we go in fast. Minimize exposure. The goal is extraction, not confrontation." "The goal," Michael corrected quietly, "is getting Susan out alive. Everything else is secondary." Rachel studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Understood. But Mr. Scott, you need to stay back. We handle the tactical. I'm going in. That's not negotiable." Michael's tone left no room for argument. "Susan knows me. She trusts me. If she sees you armed strangers, she might panic. That gets people hurt." Peter stepped forward. "He's right. But Michael, you wear a vest. You stay behind the entry team, and if things go south, you let the professionals work." Michael agreed with a single nod. They moved out at midnight, a convoy of black SUVs cutting through city streets toward the industrial district. Dixon sat beside Michael, clutching a blanket Dr. Mark had wrapped around him. The boy had refused to stay behind. "She's my mom," he'd said with a fierce determination that reminded Michael of Susan herself. "I'm going." Michael hadn't argued. In the boy's place, he would have done the same. The dock district smelled of salt and rust, forgotten dreams and broken promises. The red warehouse loomed ahead, its windows dark except for a faint glow on the ground floor. Rachel's team moved like shadows, fanning out to secure the perimeter. Michael's earpiece crackled. 3 lookouts spotted, Rachel reported. Rooftop, east and west. Amateur setup. They're watching the front approaches but missed the southern exposure. "Confidence or incompetence?" Peter asked from the command vehicle. "Both." Michael checked his vest one more time, then looked at Dixon. "You stay here with Dr. Chen. No matter what happens, you stay in this vehicle. Understand? Bring my mom back." "I will." The team moved in 12 minutes later, using the southern entrance Rachel had identified, an old loading dock with a rusted door that gave way with minimal noise. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of shipping containers and abandoned machinery, pools of darkness broken by harsh work lights. And there, in the center, tied to a chair under a single spotlight, was Susan Gregg. Michael's chest tightened. 15 years had passed, but he would have recognized her anywhere. Her dark hair was streaked with gray now, her face more lined, but her eyes still held that quiet strength he remembered. 3 men stood around her. The big one with the scar paced, a phone pressed to his ear. Told you he'll come. He owes her. The great Michael Scott doesn't forget debts. Michael's jaw clenched. This was about him. Everything was about him. Rachel's voice whispered in his ear. We have clear shots. Say the word. Wait, Michael murmured. He needed to understand why. Needed to know who was behind this. He stepped forward, into the light. You're right, he said loudly. I don't forget debts. The three men spun toward him. Scarface dropped his phone. For a moment, nobody moved. The warehouse seemed to hold its breath. Michael Scott. The big man's voice carried a mixture of satisfaction and disbelief. You actually came. Did you think I wouldn't? Michael stepped further into the light, his hands visible, empty. Behind him, hidden in the shadows, Rachel's team held position. You took someone under my protection. That was your first mistake. Scarface laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the metal walls. Your protection? That's rich. You don't even remember her, do you? One good deed 15 years ago, and you think that makes you noble? I remember perfectly. Michael's eyes found Susan's. She was trying to signal something with her eyes. Warning, urgency, fear. Not for herself, for him. Susan Gregg, bookkeeper at Feldman and Associates. She found evidence of contractor fraud that saved my company. She asked for nothing, expected nothing. Wrong. Scarface pulled a gun from his belt, though he kept it pointed at the floor. She expected you to remember, to check on her, to make sure she was okay after she stuck her neck out for you. Michael's stomach twisted. What are you talking about? Tell him, Susan. Scarface moved closer to her chair. Tell him what happened after you helped the great Michael Scott. Susan's voice came out hoarse but steady. Michael, don't listen. Feldman fired her. Scarface cut her off. Blacklisted her. Couldn't get another accounting job in the city. Why? Because she'd exposed one of their biggest clients. Sure, you got justice. You got your money back. You built your empire. But Susan? Susan got nothing. Michael felt like he'd been punched. Susan, I didn't know. I tried to find you. 2 years too late. Scarface's voice dripped with venom. By then she was working 3 jobs just to keep a roof over her head. Single mother. No support. Struggling. I survived, Susan said firmly. I made choices. I moved forward. Michael doesn't owe me. He owes you everything, Scarface roared. Without you, he'd be bankrupt. Instead, he's got billions while you're barely scraping by in a 1-bedroom apartment. Michael's mind raced. This wasn't random violence. This was personal. Who are you? Scarface smiled, ugly and cruel. Name's Ray Harrison, though that probably doesn't mean anything to you either. The name sparked nothing. Michael shook his head. Course not. Why would the great Michael Scott remember a construction worker? I was on your first project, the one that almost failed. When Susan exposed the contractor fraud, guess who went down with them? Ray's face twisted. I was just a foreman. Didn't know my bosses were stealing. But when the investigation came, we all got painted with the same brush. Lost my license, lost my career, lost everything. Understanding dawned like cold water. So this is revenge. This is justice. Ray raised the gun, pointing it at Susan's head. You built an empire on ruins, on her sacrifice, on my destruction. Tonight, you pay for that. Wait. Michael held up his hands. You're right. I didn't think about the consequences. I was young, desperate, and focused only on saving my company. I should have followed up. I should have made sure Susan was okay. I should have. Should have, Ray mocked. Words are cheap, Scott. I want something real. Name it. $10 million. Michael didn't hesitate. Done. I'll transfer it right now. Ray blinked, clearly not expecting such immediate agreement. You... what? $10 million. I'll wire it to any account you want. Susan goes free. This ends. Michael pulled out his phone. I can have the transfer completed in 5 minutes. For a moment, Ray seemed uncertain. Then his expression hardened again. No, it's not about money. It's about making you hurt, making you lose something that matters. She matters, Michael said quietly. More than you know. Then watch her die. Ray's finger tightened on the trigger. Everything happened in the space of a heartbeat. Rachel's team moved. Red laser dots appeared on Ray's chest. Drop the weapon, drop it now. But Michael was already moving, throwing himself between Ray and Susan. He heard the shot, felt the impact against his vest like a sledgehammer to the chest. The world tilted. He crashed into Susan's chair, sending them both sprawling. More shots. Not from Ray, from his 2 accomplices. The warehouse exploded into chaos. Rachel's team returned fire, precise and controlled. One accomplice went down, then the other hit in the shoulders, disarmed but alive. Ray stood frozen, his gun now pointed at Michael's chest as the billionaire struggled to his feet, gasping for air. Bulletproof vest, Michael wheezed. Did I mention I came prepared? Ray's hand shook. Around them, Rachel's team closed in, weapons trained on his head. He was surrounded, finished. Drop it, Ray, Michael said, his voice surprisingly gentle despite the pain radiating through his ribs. It's over. You don't understand. Ray's eyes were wild. I lost everything. 15 years of nothing, watching you climb higher and higher while I scraped bottom. I understand better than you think. Michael slowly straightened, ignoring the pain. I know what it's like to lose everything. I've been there. That's why Susan's help meant so much. She saved you. Who saved me? The question hung in the air. No one, Michael admitted. And that's on me. On society. On a system that doesn't care about collateral damage. You're right to be angry, Ray. You're right to want justice. Then why stop me? Because this isn't justice. It's just more pain. Michael gestured to Susan, who was struggling against her bonds, her eyes locked on him with concern. Hurting her doesn't balance the scales. It just tips them further. Punishing an innocent woman for what happened to you? That makes you the villain, not the victim. I have nothing left to lose. You have your life, your freedom, the chance to start over. Michael took a careful step forward. I'm offering that, $10 million, not as ransom, as restitution, for what you lost, for what I didn't see. Blood money. Opportunity money. Michael's voice strengthened. Use it to rebuild. Start a new business. Get certified again. Hell, I'll write you a recommendation letter if that's what it takes. But please, Ray, don't throw your life away on something that can't be undone. Ray's gun wavered. Why would you do that? I just tried to kill you. Because Susan taught me something 15 years ago, even though I was too stupid to learn it properly. Michael glanced at her. She showed me mercy when she could have watched me fail. She helped me when she didn't have to. Maybe it's time I paid that forward. Silence stretched through the warehouse. Ray's accomplices groaned on the floor, clutching their wounded shoulders. Rachel's team held position, fingers on triggers, waiting for orders. I'm tired, Ray finally said, his voice breaking. I'm so tired of being angry. Then put the gun down. Slowly, trembling, Ray lowered the weapon. The moment it pointed at the floor, Rachel's team moved in, securing him with professional efficiency, but without unnecessary force. Ray didn't resist. He just stood there, looking lost and hollow. Comment: mercy wins if you believe redemption is stronger than revenge. The cruel will stay silent. The just will speak up. Michael rushed to Susan, pulling a knife from his belt and cutting through the ropes binding her wrists and ankles. She fell forward and he caught her, supporting her weight. Michael, you idiot, she gasped. You could have been killed. Wouldn't be the first time you saved me from a bullet. He helped her stand, checking her for injuries. Are you hurt? Did they? I'm fine. Bruised, terrified, but fine. Her eyes were fierce despite the tears. You shouldn't have come. You should have called the police. The police would have taken too long, and I owed you. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. Peter appeared from the shadows, surveying the scene with professional assessment. 3 suspects in custody, no casualties, clean operation. He looked at Michael. Though I'd prefer if you didn't use yourself as a human shield next time. Note taken. Rachel approached with Ray in custody, the big man's hands bound behind his back. He looked at Michael with an expression somewhere between hatred and confusion. What happens to me now? Ray asked quietly. Michael considered. Every logical part of him said prosecute, press charges, send the man to prison for attempted murder. Ray had taken Susan, threatened her life, and shot at him. Justice demanded consequences, but justice could be complicated. Marcus, Michael said slowly, get our lawyers on the phone. I want to explore options. Sir? Ray committed crimes. He'll face consequences. But I want to understand if there's a path that includes rehabilitation, therapy, real help. Michael turned to Ray. You were right about one thing. The system failed you. I failed you. That doesn't excuse what you did tonight, but it matters. Ray's face crumpled. I don't understand. Why? Because 15 years ago someone showed me mercy I didn't deserve. Someone helped me when I was at my lowest, expecting nothing in return. Maybe it's time I learned that lesson properly. Susan gripped Michael's arm. You're serious about this? I am. He met her eyes. But only if you agree. You're the victim here. Your voice matters most. Susan looked at Ray for a long moment. The man who'd terrorized her, who'd tied her up, who'd threatened her life. Then she looked at Michael, at the pain still evident in his face from the bullet impact, at the determination in his eyes. He needs help, she said finally. Real help, not just punishment. Michael nodded. Then that's what we'll pursue. Rachel's team began clearing the warehouse, securing evidence and tending to the wounded accomplices. Peter coordinated with incoming police units, explaining the situation in careful terms that protected Michael's liability while ensuring proper legal process. Through it all, Michael stayed beside Susan, supporting her as the adrenaline began to fade and shock set in. Dixon, she suddenly gasped. Where's my son? Is he safe? Outside in the vehicle. Michael smiled. He ran 2 hours to find me. That's a brave kid you raised. He's everything. Susan's voice cracked. When they grabbed me, all I could think was getting him away, keeping him safe. He said you told him about me, about the debt. Just in case. I never thought he'd actually need to. She shook her head. Michael, I'm sorry. I never wanted to drag you into my life again. I've been fine. We've been fine. You shouldn't have had to be just fine. Michael's voice was heavy with regret. I should have found you sooner. Made sure you were okay after what you did for me. Susan, I didn't know Feldman fired you. I didn't know you struggled. If I had, you would have helped, I know. She smiled weakly. That's exactly why I didn't reach out. I didn't help you expecting payback, Michael. I helped you because it was the right thing to do. And that's exactly why you deserve better than you got. They emerged from the warehouse into cool night air. Dixon saw his mother and erupted from the vehicle, Dr. Mark barely catching him as he bolted forward. Susan dropped to her knees, catching her son in a fierce embrace. Mom, are you okay? Did they hurt you? I'm okay, baby. I'm okay. She held him tight, tears streaming freely now. You were so brave. So brave. Over Susan's shoulder, Dixon looked at Michael. You kept your promise. You brought her back. Always keep my promises, Michael said, his chest still aching but his heart somehow lighter. Police cars were arriving now, lights flashing blue and red against the warehouse walls. Detectives would want statements. The district attorney would want to review the case. It would be a long night. But standing there, watching Susan hold her son, watching the fear drain from both their faces, Michael felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Purpose. Real purpose. Not building another tower, not closing another deal, but actually mattered to someone in a way that counted. Peter appeared at his elbow. Media's going to hear about this. Billionaire involved in Dock District shootout. It'll be headlines by morning. Let them talk. You'll need a statement, a narrative. Michael watched Susan ruffle Dixon's hair, watched the boy laugh through his tears. The narrative is simple. Someone I care about needed help. I helped. That's all. That's not all, though. Marcus's voice was quiet. You're considering helping Ray, after everything. I'm considering a lot of things. Michael turned to his security chief. Starting with a full review of everyone who's been affected by my business decisions. People who fell through the cracks. People like Ray, who lost everything in the chaos. That's a tall order. I have tall resources. Michael's jaw set with determination. If building my empire hurt people, then I need to know about it. And I need to make it right. Peter studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. You're serious about this? Completely. An hour later, statements had been given, evidence had been secured, and Ray and his accomplices had been transported to police custody with orders for medical evaluation and psychiatric assessment. The warehouse district was quiet again, just the gentle lap of water against docks and the distant hum of the city. Michael stood beside his SUV, watching Susan and Dixon sleep in the back seat, exhausted and finally safe. Dr. Mark had checked them both thoroughly, minor injuries, severe stress, but nothing that wouldn't heal. Rachel approached, her team packing up their equipment with military precision. Clean operation, she said, though unorthodox. Sorry about that. Don't be. You got the outcome you wanted, hostage safe, minimal violence, perpetrators in custody. She paused. Though I have to ask, are you really going to help the man who tried to kill you? Michael didn't answer immediately. He thought about Susan's sacrifice 15 years ago, thought about Ray's desperate eyes, thought about all the people whose names he'd never learned, whose stories he'd never heard, whose lives had been changed, for better or worse, by his success. I'm going to try, he said finally. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but I have to try. Rachel nodded, respect clear in her expression. Your father would have just pressed charges and moved on. My father built an empire by stepping on people. I'd like to think I can do better. Good luck with that, Mr. Scott. As Rachel's team departed, Jennifer approached with her ever-present tablet. Sir, I've been compiling information as you requested. There are quite a few people affected by your early business dealings. Contractors who went bankrupt, workers who lost jobs, small businesses that couldn't compete. How many? Dozens. Maybe more once we dig deeper. Michael felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders. All those lives, all those consequences he'd never considered in his rush to succeed. Start with the worst cases, he said. People who lost everything. People like Ray. Reach out to them. Offer meetings. I want to hear their stories. And then? And then we figure out how to help. Jennifer's fingers flew across her tablet. This will be expensive. I have expensive resources. It will be time-consuming. I have time. It will be complicated. Michael looked at Susan sleeping peacefully, her son curled against her side. The best things always are. The headlines hit before dawn. Billionaire Michael Scott involved in Dock District rescue. Scott Industries CEO saves former employee in dramatic standoff. Michael Scott, hero or vigilante? But Michael didn't care about headlines. He sat in his office as sunrise painted the city gold, watching Susan and Dixon sleep on the leather couch he'd converted into a makeshift bed. Dr. Mark had insisted they rest before going anywhere. They'd been through too much. Peter entered quietly, carrying 2 coffee cups. He handed one to Michael. "Media's having a field day," Peter said. "They're calling you everything from a hero to a reckless cowboy. The board wants a statement. Shareholders are nervous. Legal is having a coronary about liability." "Let them be nervous." Michael sipped his coffee, never taking his eyes off Susan and Dixon. "What about Ray?" "Psychiatric evaluation is underway. Initial reports suggest severe depression and PTSD from his financial collapse. His public defender is already talking about mental health plea options. I want our legal team to assist with his defense." Peter nearly choked on his coffee. "You want to what?" "Get him the best mental health attorneys available. Make sure he gets proper evaluation, proper treatment." Michael finally turned to face his security chief. "I meant what I said, Marcus. He needs help, not just punishment. The DA is going to fight that. Attempted murder, kidnapping, assault, then we fight back. Present the full picture. Show how he was victimized by a system that didn't care about collateral damage." Michael's voice was steady. "I'm not saying he shouldn't face consequences. I'm saying those consequences should include rehabilitation." Peter was quiet for a long moment. "You really are serious about this whole redemption thing?" "Call it whatever you want. I'm serious about being better than I was." The sun climbed higher. Across the city, people were waking up, reading T90 news and forming opinions about what had happened at the docks. Some called Michael a hero. Others questioned his methods. A few conspiracy theorists suggested it was all staged for publicity. None of them understood. Susan stirred on the couch, her eyes opening slowly. For a moment, she looked confused, disoriented. Then memory flooded back, and she sat up quickly, checking on Dixon, who continued sleeping beside her. "Easy," Michael said softly. "You're safe. My office. It's morning." Susan's hand went to her throat, touching the bruises where the ropes had been. "I thought maybe I'd dreamed it. The warehouse. You're coming. All of it. No dream. Though I wish it had been." She stood carefully, moving to the window. The city stretched below them, millions of lives intersecting, millions of stories unfolding. Somewhere down there, Ray Harrison sat in a cell, facing an uncertain future. Somewhere, construction workers were starting their shifts, bookkeepers were opening their ledgers, and single mothers were getting their children ready for school. All those invisible people Michael had never thought about. "I need to tell you something," Susan said quietly, "about why I helped you 15 years ago." Michael set down his coffee. "You don't have to. I do." She turned to face him. "You think I helped you out of pure altruism, that I'm some kind of saint who expects nothing in return, but that's not entirely true. I don't understand. I helped you because I knew what it felt like to fail." Susan's voice carried old pain. "Before I became a bookkeeper, I tried to start my own business, a small accounting firm. I poured everything into it, my savings, my time, my dreams, and I failed, spectacularly." She wrapped her arms around herself, remembering. "When I saw you, young and desperate, watching your company collapse, I saw myself 3 years earlier. I remembered how it felt when no one would help me, when banks refused loans, when established firms saw me as competition to crush rather than a colleague to support." Her eyes found his. "I helped you because I didn't want you to feel that alone. That's hopeless." Michael felt something crack open in his chest. "Susan. But here's the thing I learned, Michael. Helping you didn't erase my own failure. It didn't make my pain go away. It just made it mean something." She smiled sadly. "For years, I told myself that was enough. That I'd helped someone succeed even if I couldn't. That Dixon would grow up knowing his mother did something good. You did do something good. I did something good that had consequences I never anticipated." Susan gestured toward the sleeping Dixon. "When Feldman fired me, when I got blacklisted, when I struggled to find work, I was angry, so angry, at them, in the system, at you, at me. You've got to succeed. You got your empire, your billions, your name on buildings, and I got—" She laughed bitterly. "I got 3 jobs and a 1-bedroom apartment and a son who deserves so much better." Michael stood slowly. "Why didn't you reach out? I would have helped. I tried to find you." "I know. Jennifer told me you searched for 2 years." Susan's expression softened. "But by then, my pride wouldn't let me. I'd made my choice to help you, expecting nothing. How could I then turn around and ask for something? It would make the whole gesture meaningless." "It wouldn't have been meaningless, it would have been human." They stood in silence, the weight of 15 years settling between them. "I don't hate you, Michael," Susan said finally. "I never did. Ray's story resonated with me because I understood his anger. But I made different choices with mine. I focused on Dixon, on building a life that mattered even if it wasn't glamorous. And now I'm tired." Susan's voice cracked. "I'm tired of struggling, tired of choosing between rent and groceries, tired of watching my brilliant son go to an underfunded school because I can't afford better. I'm tired of being noble about my sacrifice." Michael moved closer, his voice gentle. "Then stop being noble. Let me help." "Why? Out of guilt? Out of debt? Out of recognition that you changed my life, and I owe you more than a thank you? Out of—" He paused, searching for words. "Out of respect for someone who showed me what integrity looks like." Dixon stirred on the couch, his small voice cutting through the tension. "Mom?" Susan was at his side instantly. "I'm here, baby." The boy sat up, rubbing his eyes. Then he saw the city outside the window, the sunrise painting everything gold, and his face lit up with wonder. "We're really high up." "60th floor," Michael said, kneeling beside the couch. "Dixon, I need to ask you something. Would it be okay if your mom and I talked about the future? How might I be able to help your family?" Dixon looked at his mother. "Are we in trouble?" "No, sweetheart. We're safe. Mr. Scott just wants to talk about things." "Okay." Dixon's stomach growled audibly. "Can we have breakfast first? I haven't eaten since yesterday." Michael smiled. "I think that can be arranged." 20 minutes later, they sat in Scott Industries' executive dining room, a private space Michael rarely used. But this morning, chefs had prepared a spread worthy of royalty. Pancakes, eggs, fresh fruit, juice, and pastries. Dixon's eyes went wide. "Is all this for us?" "All for you," Michael confirmed. He watched the boy eat with the intense focus of someone who'd been too hungry for too long. Watched Susan pick at her food, still processing everything, and he made a decision that would change all their lives. "Susan," he said quietly, "I want to offer you a position." She looked up, wary. "What kind of position?" "Director of Social Responsibility for Scott Industries. New department. You'd oversee a fund dedicated to identifying and helping people who've been negatively impacted by corporate growth. Not just my company, but across the industry." Susan stared at him. That's not a real job." "It is now. A budget of $50 million to start. Full authority to investigate, assess, and distribute funds as you see fit. Salary of $200,000 a year. Full benefits. Office on this floor." "Michael, you can't just create a position." "I can do whatever I want. It's my company." He leaned forward. "But more than that, you're the perfect person for this role. You understand what it's like to fall through the cracks. You have the integrity to handle it fairly. And frankly, I need someone who'll tell me the truth even when it's uncomfortable. This is guilt talking. This is recognition talking." Michael's voice was firm. "You saved my company once by exposing the truth. I'm asking you to do it again. Show me where we're failing people. Help me fix it." Dixon stopped eating, looking between his mother and Michael with wide eyes. "Mom, that sounds like a really important job." "It would be," Susan admitted, "if it's real." "It's real. Jennifer's already drafting the paperwork." Michael gestured to where his assistant stood discreetly near the door, tablet in hand. Say yes, Susan. Let me finally pay forward what you did for me. Susan's eyes glistened with tears. I don't know if I'm qualified. You're the most qualified person I know. She looked at Dixon, at his hopeful face, at the breakfast he was devouring, at the opportunities she'd never dared dream about. Then she looked at Michael, really looked at him, searching for any hint of pity or obligation. She found only sincerity. Okay, she whispered. Okay, yes. Dixon cheered. Michael smiled. And something fundamental shifted in the universe. The next 3 weeks transformed everything. Susan moved into her new office with a mixture of terror and determination. Michael gave her complete autonomy, and she used it ruthlessly. Within days, she'd identified 17 cases similar to Ray's. People whose lives had been destroyed by corporate decisions made without thought for human cost. She approached each one personally, listened to their stories, offered not just money, but real support. Job training, mental health services, business loans with favorable terms. One case at a time, she began rebuilding what had been broken. Ray Harrison's case became a test case for restorative justice. Michael hired the best defense attorneys, the best psychiatrists, the best advocates. They presented a full picture to the court, not excusing Ray's crimes, but contextualizing them within a larger systemic failure. The judge, a stern woman named Patricia Chen, listened to 6 hours of testimony. Then she made a groundbreaking ruling. Ray would serve 3 years in a minimum security facility with intensive mental health treatment, followed by 5 years of supervised rehabilitation, during which he'd work in a program helping other displaced workers. Not everyone agreed with the decision. Victims' rights advocates protested. Law and order politicians condemned it. But Michael stood firm, and Susan backed him up. Justice isn't just punishment, she told reporters outside the courthouse. It's also about preventing the next tragedy, about addressing root causes, about recognizing that hurt people hurt people. The quote went viral. Dixon started at a new school, one of the best private academies in the city. Michael had offered to pay, but Susan had refused. She'd use her new salary. She'd earn it herself. That mattered to her. But she did accept Michael's offer of a better apartment, and his offer to establish a college fund for Dixon, and his offer to cover the medical bills from her ordeal. You're still too proud, Michael told her one evening as they worked late in his office reviewing cases. Pride is all I had for a long time, Susan replied. It's hard to let go. You don't have to let go of pride. Just let go of the belief that accepting help makes you weak. She looked at him, this man who'd grown from a desperate young entrepreneur into a billionaire who still remembered where he came from. When did you get so wise? The moment I stopped thinking I had all the answers. They worked together often, developing programs, refining approaches, learning from failures and celebrating successes. The social responsibility department became a model that other companies began studying, then copying. Michael's board initially resisted the expense. $50 million that could have been profit, they argued. But when public perception of Scott Industries improved, when talented employees specifically cited the company's ethics as a reason for joining, when contracts started flowing from clients who admired the initiative, the board's objections quieted. Doing good, it turned out, was also good business. 3 months after that night at the warehouse, Michael stood in the lobby of Scott Industries watching workers install a new piece of art. It was a bronze sculpture, abstract but powerful, 2 hands reaching toward each other, almost touching. Susan approached, Dixon at her side. The boy came by the office often after school now, doing homework in his mother's office, occasionally venturing down to watch the city move below. It's beautiful, Susan said, studying the sculpture. What's it called? Connection, Michael replied. The artist said it represents how we're all closer to each other than we think, how one person's choice to reach out can change everything. Subtle, Susan teased. I don't do subtle anymore. Michael smiled. I spent too many years being subtle, being distant, being so focused on success that I forgot about significance. Dixon tugged on Michael's sleeve. The billionaire crouched down to the boy's level. "Mr. Scott, I wrote something for school about heroes. Want to hear it?" "Absolutely." Dixon pulled out a crumpled paper from his backpack. He read carefully, his 7-year-old voice serious and thoughtful. "Heroes don't just save people from bad guys. Heroes save people from being alone. They save people from thinking nobody cares. My hero is Michael Scott because he came when we needed him. But he's also my hero because he said sorry, because he helped people he didn't have to help, because he showed me that being strong means being kind." Michael felt his throat tighten. He looked up at Susan, whose eyes were bright with tears. That's a really good essay, Dixon." "I got an A." The boy grinned. "Teacher said I should read it at assembly next week." "You should definitely do that." As Dixon ran off to look at the sculpture more closely, Susan stood beside Michael. "He worships you, you know," she said quietly. "He shouldn't. I'm just a man who made a lot of mistakes and got lucky enough to fix some of them. That's more than most people do." Susan's hand briefly touched his arm. "Thank you, Michael, for everything. Thank you for giving me the chance to be better." They watched Dixon circle the sculpture, his small face thoughtful as he studied it from every angle. The afternoon sun streamed through the glass walls, painting everything in warm light. "What happens now?" Susan asked. "Now we keep working, keep finding people who need help, keep building something that matters." Michael smiled. "And maybe eventually, we change how business gets done. Make it about more than just profit." "That's ambitious." "I'm an ambitious man, but these days I'm ambitious about the right things." Across the city, in a minimum security facility, Ray Harrison sat in a therapy session, beginning the long work of healing. In Hollowbrook, construction crews, paid fair wages by Scott Industries, rebuilt homes destroyed in the fire. In boardrooms across the country, executives read about Susan's social responsibility department and wondered if they could replicate it. One night at the docks, 3 lives had collided. A desperate boy, a struggling mother, a wealthy man who'd forgotten his debts. That collision could have ended in tragedy, in death, in more pain added to an already painful world. Instead, it became something else. A reminder that people matter more than profit. Those old debts are worth paying. That mercy can be stronger than vengeance. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is offer it. Michael Scott stood at his office window one evening, months after everything had changed. 60 floors below, the city pulsed with life. Millions of stories, millions of struggles, millions of opportunities to make a difference. His phone buzzed, a text from Susan. Another case came in. The single father lost his job when we acquired his company. "Interested?" He typed back immediately, "Always." Because that's what heroes did. Not the dramatic, headline-grabbing kind of heroism, but the quiet, consistent kind. The kind that showed up. The kind that kept promises. The kind that remembered that every empire is built on someone's sacrifice, and the only way to honor that sacrifice is to make sure it wasn't in vain. Michael touched the glass, his palm leaving a momentary print before fading. Somewhere out there, a child was running toward hope. A mother was struggling to survive. A person was falling through society's cracks. And now, Michael Scott was watching for them, ready to catch them, ready to remember that he'd once been caught too. The sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Michael smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new chances to do better. But tonight, right now, in this moment, 3 people who might have been lost have found each other instead. And that made all the difference.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you stand against greed and injustice. Only those who side with corruption would ignore this message. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing than you can ever imagine, so do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.